The philosopher Voltaire once said, "Doubt is uncomfortable, but certainty is absurd." Yet most of us live as if doubt is a weakness, something to be fixed rather than explored. But what happens when we start treating our beliefs like facts? History answers that question for us. In the early 20th century, a movement called eugenics swept across the globe. It was marketed as scientific, rational, progressive. Leading academics, doctors, even lawmakers believed it was the key to human advancement, all based on the idea that some people were biologically superior to others. And people didn't just go along with it. They celebrated it. The result? Forced sterilizations, inhumane policies, entire communities dehumanized in the name of progress. Not because of hatred, but because of certainty. This is the quiet horror of dogmatic thinking. It doesn't need to scream or carry a weapon. It just needs to believe, fully, unquestionably. And when belief becomes immune to doubt, it stops being a belief, it becomes a weapon. Why certainty feels so good? Why is this so appealing? Because certainty is comforting. It gives us a sense of order in a chaotic world. It tells us who the good guys are. It removes the burden of ambiguity. When you're certain, you don't need to listen. You don't need to investigate. You just know. But here's the trap. The moment you believe you have all the answers, you stop asking the right questions. And that's where philosophy steps in. Not to hand you truth, but to remind you that truth is always worth questioning. Socrates, arguably the father of Western philosophy, spent his entire life asking annoying questions, not because he thought he knew more than others, but because he knew he didn't. He called it the wisdom of knowing you know nothing. And yet today, the loudest voices in the room are usually the ones most convinced they have it all figured out. Let's bring science into this. Psychologists have discovered something called motivated reasoning. It's the process where our brains unconsciously filter information to confirm what we already believe, and reject what we don't. It doesn't matter how smart you are. In fact, the more intelligent someone is, the better they are at rationalizing their beliefs, even the false ones. Because intelligence doesn't protect you from bias, it just gives you better tools to defend it. And here's the twist. The more emotionally attached we are to an idea, the more aggressively we'll protect it, even against overwhelming evidence. This explains why arguments rarely change anyone's mind. You're not fighting logic, you're challenging identity. And identity doesn't bend easily. Here's something we rarely consider. Our beliefs aren't just about the world, they're about us. We don't just believe things because they're true. We believe them because they make us feel safe, or righteous, or powerful. And when someone challenges those beliefs, it doesn't feel like a disagreement, it feels like an attack. So we armor up, we dig in, and we call it standing our ground. But often it's not strength, it's fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of letting go. Fear of the uncertainty that comes when the truth isn't so black and white. And here's the irony. True strength isn't in certainty, it's in curiosity. So how do you escape the trap of unshakable certainty? You seek out friction. You welcome discomfort. You treat disagreement not as a threat, but as an opportunity to expand your mind. It means reading things that challenge your worldview. It means listening without preparing your rebuttal. It means asking yourself, not others, what if I'm wrong? And most importantly, it means resisting the urge to build your identity on your opinions. Because once your belief becomes who you are, any challenge to it feels like a challenge to you. But if you can separate the two, if you can hold your ideas with an open hand rather than a clenched fist, you give yourself permission to grow. Let's bring it home with this. Philosophy isn't about getting the right answers. It's about learning to live with better questions. It teaches us that the world is complex, that certainty is a sedative, and that wisdom doesn't come from knowing. It comes from wondering. So the next time you feel certain, completely, absolutely, unquestionably certain, pause. Ask yourself, what don't I know? What haven't I considered? What am I avoiding? Because that moment of doubt, that crack in the wall, that's not weakness. That's where the light gets in.